Division of Workers' Compensation main goal is to make sure that all claim participants receive the help that they need, that they feel satisfied with the information that they receive, and that all the information being provided, either through our customer service line, trainings, webinars, and online resources, are of great help. All this while still regulating the Texas Administrative Code and Texas Labor Code to ensure that all claim participants are in compliance. Today, we will be focusing on one of the most important forms in the workers' compensation system. This form is the base for determining an injured employee's workers' compensation benefits. And for this reason, we will be talking today about the DWC Form-003, Employer's Wage Statement, and DWC Form-003, SD, Employer's Wage Statement for School Districts. We will look at each one of these forms, focus on the important sections, and provide you with some examples of what information is expected from you on this form. We'll go into further detail on the importance of filling out a timely, complete, accurate wage statement so that you stay in compliance with the Texas Administrative Code and Texas Labor Code. Hi, my name is Stephanie Saldaña, and I am a single point of contact with the Texas Department of Insurance Division of Workers' Compensation. I have been with the Division of Workers' Compensation for 7 years. I am a single point of contact with the Outreach and Claims Service team. In this role, I provide escalated customer service to injured employees and system participants. I identify potential noncompliance with workers' compensation law and rules. I assist with governmental official inquiries about claim-related matters. And I am also tasked with processing and making determinations in response to several division form requests from system participants. In addition, the Outreach and Claims Service team is the team that assists and handles requests from claim participants when requesting assistance in obtaining a copy of the employer's wage statement. We're here today because our main goal is to provide you with accurate information on how to complete an employer's wage statement. This session will help you understanding the importance of completing an applicable wage statement, its required filing timeframes, in addition to help you understand the filing deadline, the importance of filling out a complete wage statement, what's required to be reported on the wage statement, and how to stay in compliance with the Act and Rule. An employer's wage statement must be filled out to its entirety, meaning that all sections and all fields must be completed. The completed form should be filed with the insurance carrier, injured employee, and injured employee's attorney, if any, within 30 days of the earliest of. The date that the employer is notified that an injured employee is entitled to income benefits, or the date of the employee's death because of a compensable injury. You must also file a wage statement if the Division of Workers' Compensation asks for a copy and if there is a change of information. If there is a change in wage information, as per Texas Administrative Code Rule 120.4A2, you have 7 days to file an amended wage statement with your insurance carrier. If the Division of Workers' Compensation asks for a copy, it is very important that this form is available upon request or submitted to the division within the required timeframe. The division often asks for copies of these wage statements, and as per Texas Administrative Code Rule 120.4A3, this wage statement must be filed within 7 days from the day of the request. Now, you may be wondering, why would the division need a copy of the wage statement? Well, they do. There are several program areas within the division that utilize the form in different scenarios. And I'll give you some information and some examples as to why the division may reach out and ask for a copy of the wage statement. But first, let me explain to you what is average weekly wage and why is it so important. The purpose of the wage statement is to determine the average weekly wage. We emphasize on the importance and the need to complete an accurate wage statement because this is what the insurance carrier uses to determine the average weekly wage. Average weekly wage is the average amount of money you paid your employee each week, reported in gross wages, 13 weeks before the date of injury or illness. Now, any income benefits that an injured employee receives is based on this average weekly wage. Now, the insurance carrier will take the wages that you reported on that wage statement and use it to calculate an average weekly wage. Injured employees are paid a percentage of that average weekly wage. During the life of a workers' compensation claim, an injured employee may receive income benefits such as temporary income benefits, known as TIBs, supplemental income benefits, known as SIBs, death benefits, known as DIBs, lifetime income benefits, known as LIBs, and impairment income benefits, known as IBs. Depending on the type of benefit an injured employee is entitled to, they get paid at a 70 or 75% of that average weekly wage. Now, because an injured employee does receive income benefits based on the information that you reported on the wage statement, it is very important that all the information that you reported on this wage statement is complete and accurate. Now, communication is going to be key. Establishing a single point of contact or a point of contact, someone that is available with the employer, is a best practice. This will help alleviate a lot of the issues that we frequently see. One of the most common issues is being able to get a hold of someone with the employer, either to provide a copy of the wage statement or just help answer questions regarding the form. The goal is to make this a smooth process for all claim participants, and lack of communication may and does cause a delay. Failure of an employer to file a wage statement in a timely manner, format, and as prescribed by the division is the #1 violation against employers. The division often asks for copies of the wage statement, and it's very important that the wage statement is available upon request or that it is received within the 7 days stipulated in the rule. Now, different program areas request a copy of the wage statement, such as a customer service program area. Now, this program area processes certain workers' compensation forms that are related to requests that involve income benefits. When dealing with income benefits, it is required to verify an injured employee's wages, and in doing so, require a copy of the wage statement. This program area is also the department area that receives requests for assistance in obtaining copies of the wage statement. Many times, an injured employee's attorney, and even the insurance carrier may reach out requesting assistance with obtaining a copy of the wage statement because they have been unsuccessful after several attempts. There is also the Subsequent Injury Fund. Subsequent Injury Fund is another program that pays income benefits to an injured employee, in their case, lifetime income benefits. Now, in order for them to determine the amount that an injured employee is entitled in lifetime income benefits, they are required to verify wages, and a copy of the wage statement may be requested. The hearings department is another area that may ask for a copy of the wage statement. Now, remember, the wage statement must be filed with the injured employee's attorney, and the insurance carrier within 30 days. If a party disagrees with the information that is on the wage statement, the amount of benefits that they are receiving, they have the right to pursue a dispute. For this reason, the wage statement may be involved in a dispute, and a copy of the wage statement may be requested. There is also the Compliance and Investigation Program area, and this department, they ensure system compliance and pursue enforcement, either in the case of a wage statement because they've received an allegation of improper paid income benefits, incorrect weekly check income benefits, no receipt of a wage statement. Now, in this case, there is such an allegation and there's a complaint filed alleging any of these concerns, they do carry on an investigation, and upon their investigation, they will request a copy of the wage statement. Now, this program area is a program area that enforces and provides resolution that may result in fines at times. Let's take a look at the form and the sections to help you get a better understanding of its requirements and why some of the information entered on this form is extremely important. Section 1 is the injured employee information. This is basic information, basic demographic information that the employer should already have available. Now, there are some important boxes that I'd like to highlight on this section, boxes 7 and 8. Now, remember, injured employees may qualify for certain income benefits, and in this case, injured employees may qualify for temporary income benefits when their injury or illness causes them to be out of work for more than 7 days, losing all or some of their income. Now, the information that you enter on boxes 7 and 8 will help determine if an injured employee is entitled to start those income benefits. Now, section 2 is the employer information, also very important. Now, oftentimes when requesting copies of these wage statements, the insurance carriers allege that they cannot get a hold of their insured or the contact person that is listed on this form. Usually let us know that their policyholder is not available and they have not been able to obtain a copy of the wage statement. So it's very important that the person filling out this form and that is listed on this section is someone that if needed will be available to help answer the insurance carrier or respond to the division as well. Section 3, this is where you're going to indicate the employment status of your employee at the time of injury. Now, one of the issues that we see in this section is that it is left completely blank. No selection is made on these. Now, you must select if your injured employee was a full-time employee, which is an employee that regularly works at least 30 hours per week. If your injured employee is a part-time regular course of conduct or a part-time not regular course of conduct. So part-time regular course of conduct, this is an injured employee that regularly works less than 30 hours per week. A part-time not regular course of conduct, this is an employee whose work history shows a variety between part-time and full-time, have a history of both for the last 12 months prior to the date of injury. Now, you may also be a seasonal employee, which is an employee that does temporary work to meet an employer's need during certain times of the year only. There's an apprentice, which is an employee that is learning a skill, trade by an on-the-job training and studies. You may have a minor, and this is an employee that is under the age of 18, that has not married or emancipated by court action. Or you can also have a student or trainee. A student is an employee that is enrolled in high school, college, or technical school. Or a trainee, which is an employee that is being trained for the job that they were originally hired to do. Now, it is important that you do identify the employment status of your employee at the time of injury, as this could affect how your insurance carrier calculates and pays benefits to the injured employee. So for example, seasonal employees. Seasonal employees are employees that do temporary work in which the person works during certain times of the year, more specifically during seasons, and you see this a lot with agricultural work. Now, the insurance carrier calculates the average weekly wage for seasonal employees completely different. So they do have a different calculation, and as per a Texas Administrative Code, there is an average weekly wage calculation for seasonal employees only. Now, identifying the kind of injured employee will help the insurance carrier use the appropriate calculation and pay the appropriate income benefits to an injured employee. Section 4 of the form is the wage and benefits, which consist of two parts. Now, starting with part 1, this is where you will enter all the wage information, ensuring that all the boxes are completed and that all the boxes are checked off with its applicable answer. Now, you are provided with rows for 14 weeks. However, you may not need to use all 14 weeks, just depending on your employee's pay period. Also, please do not include wages after the date of injury, just the last 13 weeks prior to the injury. A common mistake on this section is box 24. Box 24 is filled out with the incorrect total amount of gross wages. Now, box 24, please verify that the information, that the amount that you entered adds up to the total amount that you've entered on these weeks. Now, the Audit and Investigations Department has identified that one of the most common mistakes in this section is that the amount does not match the amounts that you entered on column 23. So just a friendly reminder on this section to verify the math before entering that on the form. Now, one of the most common questions related to this section is, what happens if I do not have 13 weeks of wages for the injured employee? And this may happen. This is a common question. You may have an injured employee that's only been working for 1 week, or an injured employee that's been working for a day, or an injured employee that is their first day of work and they've only been 1 hour into the workday and they've been injured. Now, if this is the case, when you must file a wage statement for an injured employee that has not worked for you for the last 13 weeks, you must use wage information from an employee that has the same or similar position. Now, this allows you as an employer to be able to report wages for an injured employee when you're faced in these situations. Now, in very rare occasions, you will be faced with the issue where there is no same or similar position. Now, if that is the case, as per Texas Labor Code 408.041C, the statute also allows for the commissioner to establish a method that is fair and just. If this is the case, parties will need to file a DWC Form 45 request to schedule, reschedule, or cancel a benefit review conference to resolve the issue of average weekly wage. Part 2 of this section is where you will enter the non-pecuniary wage information. Now, when filling out a wage statement, you must include pecuniary and non-pecuniary wages for the last 13 weeks before the date of injury. Now, you must include non-pecuniary wage information, if any, and if those benefits will be continued to be paid. If they will, then make sure that you check off box 26, letting us know that the benefits will continue. Now, understanding non-pecuniary wages may be a little confusing, and let me give you some examples of them. So non-pecuniary wages are things that the employer is paying an injured employee for. These are non-cash benefits, and some examples are things such as laundry, gas, food stipends, health insurance, clothing, lodging, professional licenses. Now, if you won't be continuing to pay non-pecuniary wages to an injured employee, you must indicate on what date those wages end on box 27 of this form. It is important that you document whether you'll continue to pay the non-pecuniary wages, because this will affect the way that the insurance carrier calculates the average weekly wage for the injured employee. Now, if you indicate that you will continue to pay non-pecuniary wages and then later discontinue the non-pecuniary wages or discontinue paying those in general, as per Texas Administrative Code Rule 120.482, you have 7 days to file an amended wage statement with your insurance carrier. Let's further look into filling out the wage section, also known as a pecuniary wages and non-pecuniary wage section. As an example, just a basic example, just to kind of show you the expectations and what we're asking for to be on the form. Give you an example, we have employee Mr. John Smith. So for this example, let's say that Mr. Smith is a full-time employee and he works 40 hours per week and he earns the same wages every week, $800 per week. Now you'd enter the total number of hours worked in columns for box 21. And then you will enter the dates for each of the 13 weeks prior to the injury in columns for box 22. Now you will enter the dates for each of the 13 weeks, and then you will enter the wages that he earned for every week, in this case, the $800 per week, in columns for box 23. Now the total here would be $10,400 for the last 13 weeks period. We verify the amount and make sure the amount is correct, and then enter that on box 24. Now remember, wages being reported on this section are gross wages. So gross wages, remember, is a total amount that you pay an injured employee before taxes and other deductions. So now let's take a look at the non-pecuniary wage section. For this example, let's say that Mr. John Smith was receiving health insurance from his employer, but was discontinued on the date of injury. You will select yes on box 25 and indicate the cost per week so that it can be accounted for in his average weekly wage. Also, because the non-pecuniary wages were discontinued, you will enter the end date on box 27. Now, remember that if you continue to pay non-pecuniary wages, then discontinue paying them, you need to file an amended wage statement. Now, by timely filing an amended wage statement, your insurance carrier will be able to recalculate those wages and make sure that you stay in compliance. Now, here's an example of a wage statement completed for a biweekly employee and a salary employee. Now, for a biweekly employee, you'll see that the employer only used the first 7 rows of weeks. Now, that would cover the 13 weeks of wages earned prior to the date of injury. And for a salary employee, the employer only used the first 3 rows, and that would also account for the last 13 weeks of wages earned prior to the date of injury. And the last part of this form is box 28. This is where you must sign and date the form, certifying that the information is complete, accurate, and complying with the Texas Administrative Code and Texas Labor Code. Remember, very, very important. communication, that the person certifying the form is also someone that will be available to the division, available to the insurance carrier if we need to reach out or any information is missing. And that upon certifying, you are certifying that everything on this form is being filled out completely and it's accurate. Okay. We also have the DWC Form 003 SD, the employer's wage statement for school districts. That does not vary much from the wage statement that we just covered. Now, because school district employees' hiring process is different and varies between employees at the time of hire, this specific wage statement is designed to provide information and wages specific to school district employees only. Now, the only purpose that the wage statement is reported and the information is correct and accurate is so that the injured employee and their beneficiaries in some cases receive the amount of benefits that they should be entitled to. Now, Section 1 and Section 2 of the school district wage statement does not change from the previous wage statement that we just discussed. Again, Section 1 will have the injured employee's information, basic demographic information that should already be available with the employer. And Section 2 would be the employer information. Again, very important section that the person listed on this section is someone that will be available if needed by the insurance carrier or if the division needs to make contact. Now, Section 3, this is where you indicate the employment status of your employee at the time of injury. And this is where you start to see the sections change from the previous wage statement to the wage statement for the school districts. Now, Section 3 does have two boxes that you need to fill out, boxes 15 and 16. And for school districts, you'll see that the items on box 16 do change to accommodate a school district employment status. Now, you will check off the applicable box pertaining to your employee or all that apply. And for school districts, you have 5 options to choose from. Now, you have a contract employee, and this is when your employee has a written contract of employment with the school district. Now, these contracts specify the amount that the employee will be paid for the completion of a contract and by the number of days or the number of months that the injured employee is required to work. Now, if this is your selection, please make sure that you enter the total gross amount, including any stipends, on the blank box provided to you underneath this section. Now, you may have a salary non-contract employee, and this is when the employee is paid a set salary per month or per year. Now, you may have an hourly non-contract employee, and this is when the employee is paid on an hourly basis. A daily non-contract employee, which is when the employee is paid by the day, or an other non-contract employee. And please explain, if this is your selection, please explain what that other would be on that section that you have available. Now, Section 4 of the wage statement for school districts consists of 2 parts. Now, starting with Part 1, this is where you will enter the earned wage information for the employee. Now, this is where the fun part begins also for school district wage statements. I'll provide you some examples just to give you a visual of the information that is expected to be on this form. And you may have a more scenario-specific questions related to your employee status or wages and how to enter it on this form. And I may not cover it on this example, but we're here to help you. The division is here to help you if you do have more specific questions regarding this section and your employee. Now, the main focus is to help you understand the process, the purpose of the form, the filing requirements so that you stay in compliance. But we are always available to help you if you need further assistance, especially with this section of the form. Now, for Part 1, Part 1 has section for the non-contract employees only, and that section will only be applicable to those injured employees. Now, as per Texas Administrative Code Rule 120.4, it identifies that for employees that are not employed through a written contract, you should report the wages that the employee earned during the 13 weeks prior to the date of injury and the number of hours the employee worked to earn the wages reported. And that's the information you will be entering on this section. Again, this section only applies to non-contract employees, and you would report the wages that the employee earned during the last 13 weeks prior to the date of injury. Now, if the employee was not employed for the 13 weeks prior to the date of injury, and the employee was not employed by the school district through a written contract, then you should provide the wages of a similar employee that was performing the same similar services and list the wages of that similar employee on this section. However, if you do not have a similar employee that has been employed for the last 13 weeks that you are able to provide wages from, then you should provide the wages earned by the employee during the time period that the employee was employed. So again, section will not be left blank. You would still provide wages during the time that the employee was employed. Now, part 2 of this section, this is where you will enter the annual wage information, and this applies to all employees. So for all employees under this section, the employer shall report the wages that an injured employee earned 12 months immediately before the injury, and remember to verify the amount that you enter on box 29. Now, the employer shall report the wages that would have been deducted from the employee's salary if the employee was absent from work for 1 week or did not have personal leave available to compensate for the wages lost that week. Now, for all employees that are employed through a written contract, you should report the full value of the contract that would have been paid if the injured employee were to fully complete the term of the contract. Now, this includes any stipends that the employee was earning or that the injured employee was scheduled to receive. In addition to reporting, now the number of days or the number of months that the employee was required to work under that contract. So if the injured employee had a contract under days, or if it was a monthly contract, that information would also go on here, whichever is applicable. Now, it is very, very important that none of these sections are left blank. Now, if there is any information that is not available, you will enter NE or 0. So for example, if your injured employee did not work for one of the months that is listed on here, you would type in or you would write in NE for not employed. Or if the injured employee worked during a month, but they did not earn any wages during that month, you can type in or write in the number 0. Now, here's an example of a wage statement for a school district. Now, this example is specifically for a non-contract employee, but the same instructions apply in filling out the form. The information needed, the information that is expected on the form, that doesn't change. The requirements and expectations apply and abide by the Texas Administrative Code and the Texas Labor Code. So this is an actual wage statement report from a school district. And simple scenario, again, just to help you visualize the expectation, what we need on these boxes, and just to kind of get an idea of what it looks like once it's been completed for a school district. Now, you may be new to the workers' compensation role, or you may just be starting off with understanding or filling out these wage statements. And so try to help you get you some examples so you can kind of see what it needs to be on this form and kind of help you visualize what is expected on the form as well. But again, if you have any questions, and again, you may have been working with workers' compensation and filling out wage statements for a very long time, and you may still have questions because every claim is different and every scenario may be different as well. So we're here to help you. You can give us a call and we can definitely guide you to filling out the wage statement according to your specific injured employee. Now, everything that we're discussing, again, our main goal is to help you stay in compliance with the Texas Administrative Code and the Texas Labor Code. And the last part of this form, box 30, where you must sign and date the form certifying that the information that you've provided on this form is accurate and compliant with the Texas Administrative Code and the Texas Labor Code. Now, we've discussed the wage statement, its importance, why it needs to be filed, why it needs to be accurate and correct. But let me give you some information and basic information as to how the insurance carrier uses the average weekly wage to pay injured employees. So once you complete a wage statement and the wage statement makes it to the insurance carrier will utilize this wage statement to calculate the average weekly wage. Now, we talked about average weekly wage calculation at the beginning of this presentation. Let me give you some information so you can get an overview and a full explanation of what happens once the wage statement makes it to the insurance carrier. Now, there are some formulas and information that the insurance carriers use to calculate average weekly wage. And of course, this is for the insurance carrier to do, but let me show you a little bit more of what's done and why we emphasize on the importance of having a complete wage statement. So here's an example of how the insurance carrier uses a wage statement to calculate average weekly wage. Now you can find this example in this formula that I'm sharing with you all on our website if you go to tdi.texas.gov, or you can enter the direct link right underneath the slide and you'll be able to find this as well. Now what happens is once you file your wage statement with the insurance carrier and you report all the information that we just discussed about on the wage statement, the insurance carrier will take that wage statement, and what they do is that they will take the last 13 weeks and calculate an average weekly wage. Now, in this case, for an injured employee, regular full-time employee example that we're using, they will use the non-pecuniary benefits that are paid to the injured employee. And again, those are health insurance, lodging, food stipends, gas, etc. That also will include any overtime or special pay that an injured employee receives. And they'll add up all those 13 weeks, then divide it by 13. So for the example that we have on here, they're using an example where they've already added the 13 weeks, divided it by 13, and we have an average weekly wage of $906.23. Now, that is the average weekly wage. However, the insurance carrier pays the injured employee a 70 or 75% of that average weekly wage. So for example, let's say that they were to pay the injured employee at a 70% of that average weekly wage. So that would be $634.36. And if they were to pay the injured employee at a 75%, then that would be $679.67. So these would be the amounts of weekly checks that the insurance carrier would send to the injured employee. This would be their weekly entitled benefit amount. Now, the percentage amount of 70 or 75% is based on different factors. So some of the factors that play a role in determining whether an injured employee receives a 70 or 75% are, for example, first of all, depending on the type of benefit an injured employee is entitled to receive. So for example, temporary income benefits known as TIPS. These benefits are paid at a 70% of an injured employee's average weekly wage. However, it could be a 75%, and this is only if the injured employee was injured before September 1st of 2015 and earned less than $8.50 per hour, or if the injured employee was hurt on or after September 1st, 2015, earned less than $10 per hour, then the insurance carrier would pay the injured employee at a 75%. Now, the 13 weeks of wages that an injured employee is earned, again, it's taken into an average weekly wage. So the payments may vary. Every payment pay period for an injured employee and their check may be different. So what the insurance carrier does in these cases, they'll take all the last 13 weeks, divide that amount so they can come with an average weekly wage calculation for injured employees. And then based on that average weekly wage calculation, pay an injured employee at the entitlement percentage that they're entitled to. Now, we also have an example for our school districts. It's actually very different, the way that the average weekly wage is calculated for them. And this is because injured employees choose to be paid only during the time that they work, or only the time of their contract. So for example, they have the 9-month contract period, then they choose to get paid only during those 9-month contracts, while other injured employees choose to be paid in equal payments of over 12 months. So because they do have employees that vary on to how they choose to be paid, there are 2 different scenarios here that you may also find on our website as to how the average weekly wage is calculated for them. So sample 1 for a school district on here is for a written contract based on months. So for this example, they take the amount of contract for the year and the number of months based on this contract. So for example, the contract for this injured employee is $45,000 per year, but the contract is based on 9 months of work. So the way that it's calculated for this injured employee is that they'll take the calculation of the average weekly wage for the temporary income benefits based on this contract. They take the $45,000 and divide it by the 9 months, which will give them those $5,000 monthly amount. However, they have to divide it by the number of weeks in month per year. So they take the $5,000 and divide it by 4.34821. Again, 4.34821 is the average number of weeks in month per year. This will give them, in this example, $1,149.90. And that is an average weekly wage in this scenario for this injured employee. And then there's scenario 2, which is for a school district employee that is under a written contract, but is paid based on the number of days that they worked. So for example, on this kind of contract, they'll use, again, the amount of the contract per year, and then the number of days worked based on this contract. So for example, for this injured employee, same amount, $45,000 per year on this contract. However, this contract is based on days, and it's 189 days contract. So they take, again, the $45,000 a year that this injured employee makes, and they divide it by the days of the contract, which is 189. This will give a daily amount of $238.09. And then they multiply that by 5 days worked per week. So a work week would be 5 days. They take the $238.09 times 5, which would equal 1,190.45. Now, this would be the average weekly wage for this kind of contract employees. So as you see, for contract employees, whether months or days, there is some sort of variation. And again, this is just an example to kind of show you why the information that is requested on the wage statement is very important, why it is important to not leave any of the sections blank, and why we discuss that. You select the kind of employee that you have. Is it contract, not contract? What's the amount of the contract that they're being paid? Because this does play a very, very important role in determining the average weekly wage for injured employees. And again, this is something that your insurance carrier needs to do. They're the ones that calculate this information, but this is all based on the information that you've provided them on the wage statement. So just some of the important information that we talked about today and that I'd really like to emphasize on again is timely filing. Timely filing is very, very important. We want to ensure that an injured employee starts receiving benefits when they have to start receiving benefits. We don't want to cause them a greater financial hardship than the one they're already in. And so timely filing is very, very important. If you realize that you made a mistake or that something has changed in the injured employee's wages, that you file or report those changes within a timely manner. Communication, very, very important. Communication. Again, there's a lot of lack of communication from the division when we're trying to get a hold of employers, when we're needing copies of these wage statements. It's really hard to get a hold of anyone that can provide this to us with the employer. And same allegations come from the insurance carriers, letting us know that they have been unable to obtain a copy of those wage statements. Completion and accuracy, again, we really emphasized and talked about that because, as you see, there is a whole calculation that goes behind calculating average weekly wage that is for your insurance carrier to determine, but it is all based on the information that you're giving on this wage statement. And compliance, very, very important, because we are trying to help you stay in compliance, make sure that everything is done according to the Texas Administrative Code, Texas Labor Code, so that you stay in compliance when it comes to your role as an injured employee in filing a wage statement. All the information discussed today is based on rules and laws. The requirements and the must-dos that we talked about today are all in accordance with the Texas Administrative Code and the Texas Labor Code. If you have any other questions or you need further clarification on any of the information that we discussed today, you can definitely go ahead and refer to some of these QR codes. We have the employer's wage statement filing timeframe. If you have any questions or you may need to refer on your timeframe and how much time you have to file the wage statement, can definitely go in here, or you can look up the Texas Labor Code with the information provided on here. We also have the QR code for the same or similar. We talked about same or similar earlier. If you are faced with a situation where you do not have 13 weeks of wages for an injured employee, this is where you may go and find the information, what you need to report or what you need to do if this is the case, if you are found in this situation. We also have the QR code for employer's wage statement. So basically, most of the information we talked about today related to employer's wage statement, you may be able to go on here and go through the subsections on this Texas Administrative Code rule, where you'll find very, very good information in all the topics that we basically covered today. And then we have average weekly wage, We talked about average weekly wage. What is average weekly wage? And provided you some examples of how average weekly wage is calculated. Again, we also mentioned that for different employees, such as seasonal employees, average weekly wage is calculated differently. And this is a QR code that you may go to and find that information regarding calculating average weekly wage. So you may go in here, if you have any questions or you may need help with interpreting some of the information that's written on these laws and rules, or do not understand what it's trying to tell you, we're here to help. Give us a call. We can help you. We can help you with understanding the Texas Administrative Code, Texas Labor Code, guide you and assist you with giving you a better understanding of what's written on these laws and rules. And again, all with the goal that you stay in compliance and that all claim participants are doing what they're supposed to, abiding by the laws and the rules. Again, you may have a different scenario. That is okay. The division is here to help. You can always give us a call. We have really good resources on our website at tdi.texas.gov. On here, you'll be able to find our forms. You'll be able to find the DWC Form 003 and the DWC Form 003 for school districts. You'll find an employer tab. You'll find the rules. The website has really nice resources. You will find some frequently asked questions, educational videos, amongst other informational material for y'all. Also, there's other tabs. There's the employee, the insurance carrier. You can definitely go into those tabs and explore what an injured employee's right responsibilities are, what their need to do to stay in compliance, what the insurance carrier is expected to do as well, and how they have to stay in compliance as well. So you can definitely get in there and explore some of these other resources or tabs, not only for employers, but for injured employees, insurance carriers as well. You'll also be able to find a glossary. So if you have a very specific question or on a very specific topic, you can go into the glossary, look for what you're needing help with, and it'll take you there and you'll find some examples such as the one I just shared for you on average weekly wage calculation. You can also find the Texas Administrative Codes, the Texas Labor Code, and you can refer to it. You can use it as a tool to help you stay in compliance if you need it to verify any of the information or anything that you're needing to do, or any filing deadline timeframes. Definitely go in there and you can look at that. Now, the division's workers' compensation goal is related to the wage statements is that this is a smooth process for all claim participants, and furthermore, that there is communication between the parties, just to help alleviate a lot of the struggles and issues that we frequently see, especially when it comes to wage statements and obtaining copies and being able to get these filed in a timely manner. Now, we're always available. We do have a customer service line that you can call us to. This is at 1-800-252-7031, option 1. And we have our customer service agents that are always available to help as well. So if you have any questions, again, please feel free to give us a call, contact us, reach out to us. We're always available and we'll be able to help you with your questions. Thank you for joining us. I hope that you found this information helpful. We will now be going into a live Q&A momentarily. Thank you all so much for joining us today at the CompCourse webinar that we hosted today related to wage statement. Now, I will be answering some of the Q&A. We have several questions on the chat. We'll try to get to all of those. We do have just a few minutes to answer these. I'll go ahead and start with some of the questions that we have on here related to the wage statement. And let me start up here. I'll read them out loud. I'm not sure. I don't believe you are able to see these, but let me go ahead and get started on these. One of the questions we have here is, I understand that we need to submit payments from 13 weeks prior to the date of injury. But what if the employee is a law enforcement employee and that takes overtime? It's a law enforcement employee that takes overtime, but it's not always the same amount of hours per pay period. In our county, the law enforcement employees are allowed to utilize vacation hours as productive time to get overtime each pay period. How would this work for wage information? What about if the employee has transfer departments and either increases or decreases pay? I would go ahead and redo the DWC Form 003. Well, for this one, for the first question on here, you would still report the last 13 weeks of wages for the injured employee. So even if the employee has transferred, he's had a pay increase, he's in a different department area now, you would still report those last 13 weeks. So you wouldn't have to redo as long as you're reporting the last 13 weeks prior to his injury, even if he's changed areas and his wages have changed. So that would not affect the having to report him again on the new DWC Form 003. Okay, we have another question here. For FMLA employees, is given 12 weeks of health insurance, but any longer than that, healthcare coverage will be suspended at that time. Do I create another DWC Form 003 when the employee no longer has health insurance? Yeah, so remember for when you have an injured employee and you are no longer paying health insurance, you would file the amended DWC Form 003. And remember, you have 7 days to file that as per Rule 120.4A2. And I can reference that for you here again, Rule 120.4A2. Get that for you here. So I have a question here from about bonuses for paid employees. Bonuses need to be included. So for pecuniary wages on Rule 126.1, I'll give you some of the information what would fall under the pecuniary wages. So for pecuniary wages, these are of course wages that are paid to an employee in the form of money. So examples of that would include, but are not limited to, hourly, weekly, biweekly, monthly, etc. The wages that are paid to the employee. And then piecework compensation, any monetary allowances, allowance such as for health insurance premiums, vehicle fuel, food meals, clothing, uniform, laundry, cleaning, lodging, housing, rent, monetary bonuses earned or accrued by the employee, and commissions. And again, I'll also reference this here, the rule, again, 126.1, and it'll show you, it'll give you examples what falls under the non-pecuniary wages and pecuniary wages. And you can definitely reference back to this and see what would fall under the pecuniary and what would be included on the wage statement. Also very important, the CompCourse for today was really focused a lot on the wage statement and timely filing, making sure that there's a time that it's filed within the time frame that it's supposed to. There are several questions on the chat regarding wage specific calculations, are very specific to wages and calculating average weekly wage. Fortunately, we might not be able to get to that very specific scenario, but I will give you our phone number also again right now, just so that we can go over that or help you with that via a telephone or contact you to go over that. But I will reference here again on the bonuses, the question on including the bonuses, that's 126.1. 126, yeah, and I think that's been answered already. Okay, let's see, what else do we have here? When an employee is paid bi-weekly, 7 pay periods are provided, isn't the total gross earning divided by 14 instead of 13 weeks? Yes. So that also, the rule on that one is 120. Let me see real quick for y'all. So that's 120.4 D3A. So I know we gave some examples also on the CompCourse regarding calculation of average weekly wage. However, again, this is our specific to calculating the average weekly wage. But yeah, so to answer your question on this one, 120.4 D3A is specific to average average weekly wage calculation for an injured employee that is paid bi-weekly. And that is, you take 7 pay periods are provided. So you would take that and divide it by the 14. What else do we have? Who is responsible on getting the wage statement to the employee? The employer. So remember, the employer has 30 days to file the wage statement with the injured employee's attorney, if any, and the insurance carrier. So it would be the employer. And where do we? Do you work alongside TWC? So the Texas Workforce Commission is a completely different agency from us. We do work with the Texas Workforce Commission. Well, this is more related to the program on rehabilitative, not really to the wage statement, but we are two different agencies. We are two different entities from the Texas Workforce Commission. If the employer only provides email with wage information and does not complete the actual DWC Form 003 form, is that acceptable? We need a copy of the wage statement. The wage statement does need to be available. If it's requested, a copy of the actual wage statement needs to be provided, whether it's requested by the division or requested by any of the other parties. Injured employee may request a copy of the wage statement. We need a copy of the form, the actual DWC Form 003. Can we write amended on the form since the option is no longer available since the new form took place? If you're going to be filing a new form, so you can write amended. There's not a problem with you putting amended, but if you're filing an amended form because there's been a change or there's you have those 7 days to file an amended or the updated wage statement, yes, you can write amended. There's no problem with you putting amended on there on the top. Mhm. Looking through here, through the questions and see what else we have on here. I was told by the carrier that once you choose one form or the other school district, you have to use the same form. Is that correct? Well, I'm a little bit confused on this one. I mean, for the school districts, there's only that one DWC Form 003 SD. And that form actually has 2 sections. So the part 1 and the part 2 that was discussed in the CompCourse regarding, the section you fill out for all employees, and then if they're non-contract employees. But there's that one form only for school districts. Question for 2 weeks. Okay, so I have another question here. It says, okay, we had a recent question from an injured employee. When pulling in the 13 weeks of wages, the injured employee was out for 2 weeks on vacation and he was paid vacation that they earned. Was told that we didn't have to include the vacation on the calculation in that case. Okay, so this is again a very specific scenario claim question. So on this one, we could definitely give you a reach back out to you, or give us a call at our 1-800. I'll give you the phone number so we can go into detail with your specific injured employee scenarios. So if there's a very specific injured employee, we can talk to you one-on-one and discuss your scenario specifically. Okay, again, do we have to fill out the DWC Form 003 if the employee is not working? Again, is the injured employee not working because he's after the post-injury because he was injured? Or are we talking about the last 13 weeks when was he not working prior to the last to being injured? Was he out of work? I mean, I'm not sure on this one, what the scenario was for the injured employee. So this is another one that we would need to know a little bit more details and see what's going on. Is it because of the injury that he wasn't working, or is it pre or post? So this one as well, it's very scenario specific. We would have to talk to you on a one-on-one and see what's going on with your employee specifically. Okay, so if the employee has not worked the 13 weeks and there's no same or similar position, can the insurance carriers fair and just calculation with the weeks that there were? So you would report the weeks that there were. You would still report the weeks that there were for the injured employee. So again, if there's no same or similar, you still file the DWC Form 003 with the time that you do have for the injured employee. Now, remember, for establishing fair and just, would have to request the DWC Form 45, the request for a benefit review conference in this scenario. But if you do have weeks of the injured employee that did work, you would still report those wages. And let me see. I'll answer. Let me go through the chat. There's a lot of questions. I'll answer one more question. Again, there's a lot of questions on the chat, just very specific to scenarios. And there's a lot also on average weekly wage calculation. So remember, average weekly wage calculation is completely different. It's completely different into exactly talking about how to calculate the average weekly wage for your specific injured for employees. So I know today's main focus on this comp course was filing and the wage statement, the timely filing of the form. That was the main focus today, but there is a lot of very specific scenario questions, so we could definitely help you on those. I'm going to reference our phone number so you can give us a call on those, but take one more question before we end, since we are running out of time here. Let's see. Yeah, so do we have to give copies of the DWC Form 003? Yes, so you have to send that copy to the injured employee's attorney if they have any, and the insurance carrier. So yes, you do have to send those out. Okay. All right, I'm sorry that we were not able to get to all of the questions today. There's just a lot of very scenario specific questions, and unfortunately we can't go through each one of them, but thank you so much for joining us today. I know there's so many questions in that chat, but please feel free to reach out to us. Our phone number is that 1-800-252-7031. If you give us a call there, we can go ahead and assist you, and then we can go ahead and discuss your specific question to your claim, and then go into further detail. And again, also reference maybe some of the rules and laws related to your questions. Again, I know this was very short, and we try and make these webinars the best that we can. But thank you so much for joining us today. We do have a short survey that pops up after this presentation. Again, just trying to make these better and more informative for you all. So y'all can take some time to fill that out. That really, really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much and have a great day.